In this watercolor tutorial, we are going to be painting a crescent moon with flowers. In the description below, you'll be able to find my outline here that you can download and then transfer onto your watercolor paper. And I have a whole entire video on how I did that. I will link that below in the description for you. But basically, I used my light pad to transfer my outline onto my paper here, and I used my watercolor pencils to do that. Before we get started painting, I'm going to quickly go over my supplies. So here I have a sheet of hot press watercolor paper from Fabriano, and it is 5 by 7 inches. And my brushes that I plan on using are my silver black velvet brushes. I have a size 2 and a size 4, and these are both round brushes. And the paints that I plan on using, I plan to use my Vintage Pastels paint set here. And the colors I plan on using is the soft lilac color and sage. Of course, you can use whatever kind of colors that you want. And then for the crescent moon, I plan to use this glittery gold here called Constellation, and it's from KMS Watercolor. And I'll link her shop in the description below for you. I have a 10% off coupon code for you as well to her shop. Another gold that will be good for the moon is the gold right here. This is from the Metallic Accents paint set. So this is another gold option. But of course, you don't have to use gold for your moon. You can use whatever kind of color you want. All of the supplies I shared are linked below in the description for you. Now let's get started. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint in the moon. So I'm wetting my brush in my water jar here, and I'm going to reactivate this gold because this is the color I'm going to be painting my moon. And then I'm just going to fill in my moon with this gold. And I'm using my size 4 round brush for this. And I'm painting around my leaves and flowers that are in front of the moon. Now I'm just kind of going back over my moon to fill in some areas that need some more paint. Now I'm going to paint in those, they're kind of like stars. I'm going to paint in those lines with the same gold here. Being careful not to touch my moon because it's still wet. And now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, my size 2 round brush here. And I think now I'll paint in the flowers. So I'm using the soft lilac color from the Vintage Pastels pan set. Now I'm just taking my brush here and I'm wetting my half pan. And I'm just going to paint right from the pan. And I have a lot of paint in my brush, so I'm kind of first distributing all of this paint into each of these petals, and then I'm kind of finishing painting them in. I hope that makes sense. And the outline here is starting to blend a little bit into my petals because I used watercolor pencils for my outline. And if you want to get extra fancy while your petals are still wet, you can drop in another color like pink or another kind of purple. I'm wiping away some of this because I feel like maybe it's a little too dark, so I'm kind of wiping some of this away. Alright, and then I'm going to move on to the next flower. I'm going to move on to this one. And I did not tape my paper down because I'm not really adding that much water paint to this painting, but it is kind of warping a little bit. So if you want to play it safe, you can tape your painting down to your desk. Yeah, I just decided not to. Okay, now I'm going to paint in these other flowers. Okay, I am done painting in the flowers, so I'm cleaning my brush. Now I'm going to use this Sage from the Vintage Pastels pan set for my leaves. So I am reactivating this with my brush, and I'm using the same brush I used for the flowers, my size 2 round brush. I'm first just going to paint in this leaf here, and then I'll probably paint in the stems. I don't want to paint in the stems right now because I just reactivated my paint, so I have a ton of paint in my brush. So I'm going to wait until I use up some of this paint that's in my brush before I paint in the stems because they're more delicate and I'll have to paint as thin as I can. Okay, so I'm using up a lot of my paint in my brush now, so I will go ahead and paint in these stems with the very tip of my brush here. And I'll go ahead and paint the stem in this leaf. Okay, now I'm back to painting in the leaves here. Painting in the stem again, just because I used a watercolor pencil for the stems and I feel like I kind of want to paint over that green a little bit because the green is a little different than the green I'm painting with now. So I'm just kind of going over those stems a little bit to look more like the green of my leaves. Now I'm just going back over my leaves a little bit to refine them. Okay, and then I'm cleaning my brush, and now I want to paint in the centers of these flowers. What I'm thinking, at least for my painting, I will be painting the centers with this gold here that I used for the moon. So I'm taking some of this gold, painting in the centers. And that is it for this painting. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to use the hashtag AllisonLionArtTutorial and tag me, AllisonLionArt, on Instagram if you post your finished painting. I would love to see it. And I also have linked in the description a free watercolor class and free watercolor challenges if you'd like to check those out. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again in a future tutorial.